Hello, test, test, check 1, 2. How are we sounding? Hello, test, test, check 1, 2. How are we sounding? I think it sounds all right. Let's get this thing going. There I am. And hopefully there you guys are. Hello and welcome to another Tuesday afternoon Wednesday afternoon song feedback stream. My name is Zaak Kerstetter. I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer, and I make and release videos about music here on the channel. So Wednesdays are the day I like to pop in here and invite you guys to come in and share your tracks with me. So the way this can work is I'm gonna toss a little link there in the chat, and I'm going to pin it up to the top of the chat. And then now that that's up there, you guys can click on that link. It'll take you to the spreadsheet. And then in the spreadsheet, you put in the link to wherever I can stream your song. It can be SoundCloud, it can be Google Drive, it can be wherever. As long as I can just stream it and I don't have to download it, that should work fine. And then you can toss in your social media links in case people want to check that out. Toss in your YouTube name so I know who is sending which songs. And then any comments or any things you'd like to add, things you want me to pay attention to, you want me to focus on the mixing or just questions you have, whatever, toss them in there. And then I will basically be going through these in the order that I receive them. So kind of going from top to bottom. So if you want to get your track reviewed early, go ahead and get that in there. Before we do that, before we do any of that kind of stuff, I do want to just kind of go over the general guidelines, the rules, the things you need to know, just the stuff we do before every one of these streams. What's up, Jagbag? How you doing? I feel like it's been a little bit since I've seen you around. Welcome back. So first off, well, Jagbag, the first up, usually what I say is no remixes, just because I get copyright strikes every single time somebody tries to send me a remix. So I prefer not to get those anymore, trying to minimize the number of copyright issues with the channel. And unfortunately with remixes, there's no way around that. So ideally I'm looking for original tracks only. But yeah, that's just a reality that I've let people get away with it in the past, doing remixes or things like that. And every single time the YouTube copyright algorithm snags me. So unfortunately, no remixes. On top of that, ideally ideally unreleased tracks as well. Also, Jaguar, you could post a remix on like the Discord or something like that, and I can take a listen to it. Just shoot me a message to let me know that you posted it to make sure I don't miss it. But I can't do remixes on the stream. And then unreleased tracks, ideally. It's not required to do unreleased tracks, but if you've already finished and released a track and put it out into the world, then you're not going to be able to take any of the advice that myself or anybody in chat gives you. So usually it's better to have works in progress. On top of that, I've had a few people send in tracks that they've released and put out into the world, and then I get copyright strikes because of the automatic copyright system for songs that they send me because they are now in the copyright music database, which is annoying. So yeah, ideally works in progress, but honestly, if you don't have anything new you're working on and you just release something, that's totally fine. It's not a huge deal. Songs will be reviewed in a first come, first served basis. So I'm just going to go top to bottom through them. If you have more than one track that you would like me to listen to, wait until the end of the stream. Generally, pretty much always, we have time at the end of stream to go through multiple tracks from people. But just in case, you never know what's going to happen. I'd rather you just send me one track at a time. And then once we get towards the end, usually about an hour and a half-ish into the stream, usually we'll have time to go through multiple tracks from individuals if that's what people want to do. Oh yeah, also all styles, all genres, whatever kind of music you're into are more than welcome here. On top of that, all skill levels are also welcome. So if you are brand new to producing and this is your second song, or you have been producing for 10 years and you've made hundreds of songs, I want to hear them. I want to hear all the different things people are into. So it doesn't matter what kind of music you're into, what you're making. I am definitely excited to hear it. On top of that, all of the live streams that I do get posted to the channel. So if you want to go back and review your feedback later on, you're more than welcome to do so. On top of that, if you can't make it live on a Wednesday, you can always submit your track early. I use the same spreadsheet every single week. And then once you've done that, I will, I'll go through it, I'll take a listen to it, and then you can always check out the video of the stream later on. It's not in the videos page of the channel, it's on the playlist page under there's like a live stream playlist, and that has all the live streams in there. So you can always go check out your feedback, even if you can't make it to a stream live. Cool, I think that's most of the kind of like major feedback stuff or general stuff. The other thing that I do want to mention is that all the feedback that I give here, I forgot one other thing. If you're giving feedback, it is not required, but it is highly encouraged that you also give feedback to other people in chat. And that way it's not just me talking at the camera, but it's everybody working together, helping each other out, giving each other thoughts and ideas, and kind of like making it more of a community thing than anything else. That's really the whole point of doing this. And then, as I was about to say, and then I interrupted myself, all the feedback I do here is for free. I do this for fun because I like doing it, because it's interesting for me, and I like hearing the stuff you guys are working on. However, if you do want to support the channel, what's up, Willie? How you doing? If you want to help support the channel, you could hit the like button, you could hit the subscribe button if you are not already. You can go watch all my videos, you can go comment on all my videos. All that stuff is a free way to help the channel grow, feed the algorithm, that kind of thing. But if you want to help support the channel monetarily, you can do the little super chat thing in YouTube. That's super cool. Or you can also check out the Patreon, and that's also a good way to help support the channel and help me keep me doing this for as long as possible. You can also check out the Discord as well if you want to, get more involved in stuff that's going on. So yeah, I think that's all of the pregame stuff. I think that's all of the things that you guys need to know about beforehand. And as always, if you guys have any questions or things you want to talk about in terms of music production, you're more than welcome to toss those in chat. And both myself as well as the other people in chat will be very excited to help you out with those. Cool. So at this point, it looks like we got a few more people showing up, and we got some people poking around in the spreadsheet, but there have been no songs submitted quite yet. So if you guys have a song that you would like to submit, you can click on the link that is pinned up at the top of the chat. That'll take you to the spreadsheet, and then inside the spreadsheet is where you post your link to your song, whatever it is you're working on. And that's how we go through and do feedback here. And if you are new around here, welcome, and I hope you enjoy hanging out with us, I guess. It feels like the last couple weeks of the feedback stream have been a little bit slow. It's been weird. I'll have like one really busy week, and then I'll have a really slow week, and then a really busy week, and it'll go back and forth. So last week was a slow week, so I'm anticipating, just because of the nature of how things have been going, that this week will hopefully be more busy. We'll see though. Hopefully you guys are having a good week and are working on some music. In fact, I might, since we got nobody in there, I'm gonna go ahead and play the track I'm working on. So if you guys are not aware, I'm doing one song a week for the entire year. And this is song number 16, or week number 16. I started this yesterday, worked for this about an hour and a half on stream, and just so you can get a sense of what I've been doing for the song a week challenge. And let me set up the audio stuff. Normally I don't like to play my own stuff during feedback streams, but you guys are being shy today. So we're gonna open it up for you guys. turn this on. And let's see how this sounds. I'm not gonna claim this is the greatest song or a finished product yet. This is literally just an hour and a half yesterday. I'm getting a little clicking from CPU stuff, so hopefully it's not, hopefully the audio quality is okay. CPU's going a little crazy. Apologize about that. What's up, HCJ? Computer can't handle it. Alright, I'm gonna stop it there because it's freaking out. But that's basically the end. So yes, that's what I was working on yesterday. Jagbag, to answer your question, the arpeggiator is a combination of a bunch of different settings. So one of the things I've been doing a lot recently, probably honestly too much, is I'll have one arpeggiator on one set of settings. So in this case, it's doing this layer, it's the first layer, doing up, down. On this really kind of like spread out 7th chord. And then I'll have a different arpeggiator with a different layer playing basically the same chord, but a slightly different note layout, like the positioning of the notes is a little bit different. So it's the same notes, but in different octaves. And then this one's going to have a different arpeggiator setting. And then you combine the two together, and then it sounds like one really fancy arpeggiator. So I find layering up multiple arpeggiators together at the same time works really, really well and makes everything sound awesome. Yeah, and then I could release this for remix if you guys want. If you guys, I can just put out the stems or put out the whole project file, and you guys can download it. But yeah, so that's what I was working on the other day. Like I said, it's very much early stages. I think I'm gonna add some like vocal samples in there or something to fill it out a bit more. Maybe tweak the arrangement. The transitions obviously need work. But yeah, that's what I did yesterday. Sweet. So it looks like we got a couple tracks in the spreadsheet. So we're going to go ahead and jump into those. But appreciate you guys listening to my track. And if you are new or just joining us and you'd like to send a track in, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat. That'll take you to the, what's it called? To the spreadsheet. And then that's where you put your link, and that's where you send me your track. So first up, we got a track from King KY. Nice. This sounds really dope. I'm really digging it. Overall, I think the beat sounds really solid. I really love the kind of like noisiness to it. It has this kind of like dark feel, but without being like too dark. I don't know. It's a really nice mix of just kind of like mood and attitude and setting. And I think the beat complements the melodic parts and vice versa. So everything kind of like gels really well. So honestly, a lot of the feedback I have here is going to be very, very specific and very, very subtle stuff. I think overall, this is probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest tracks I've heard from you. So first off, I feel like the mix of the drums feels a little bit off to me. I feel like the hats are a little bit too loud. Hats are a little bit too loud. Actually, hats are way too loud. Snare is a little bit too loud, and kick is a little bit too quiet, I think, based off my first impressions. Yeah, I think kick up a tiny bit, snare down a tiny bit, and hats down a decent amount. And I think that'll help balance out the drums quite a bit. On top of that, occasionally you have these kind of cool, interesting, weird little sounds come in, like at the start and end of the beat. I think that there's one right here. Like that little guy right at the end of that. Felt a little bit out of place, and I think maybe if you made it a little bit quieter, it would fit in with the mix a little bit better, or if you processed it a little bit more to maybe sound a little bit more similar to some other sounds, or maybe have more of those sound effects kind of throughout this track, because I think it's a cool concept and I think it works really well. Other than that, the other major thing I felt was missing is it felt like you have this main kind of melodic part that's kind of like noisy and kind of lo-fi. And I was like, oh man, I really wish there's like a melody to kind of like play with that. And then you included it right here and then also right over here. This melody part, the bell chimey kind of. I love that. I think that makes the song work for me. However, it's so quiet and it's so kind of spread out in terms of like, it doesn't happen very often. I think number one, turn it up, and number two, do more with that, because it works really well to layer up with your main kind of sound sample you're using there. Yeah, that could be a way bigger feature of this track, and I think that would be fantastic, and that would make the whole thing work really well for me. Other than that, I'm really digging it. I think everything else works really well. Again, I'm assuming this is going to be, you're going to either sell to a vocalist or work with a vocalist to rap over top of it or do something with it. So I think other than that, like everything else works really well. I love the little choppy gated part here. This little switch up's great. That's basically it. Those are kind of real things. They're just a little bit more kind of dialing in on the drums to kind of really make those drums hit real hard. And then give me more of that melodic part that I think comes in here. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling there. Chat, you got any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Keep in mind that one of the main benefits of doing a stream like this is that they can benefit, whoever's sending in a track can benefit from the feedback from not only from myself, but also you guys in chat. You guys can all help each other out, which is really fantastic. Also, on top of that, if you would like to send in a track, you can click on the link that is pinned up to the top of the chat, and then that's where you're going to send me your track. As of right now, this next song is going to be the last one in the spreadsheet so far. So if you send me a track, it will be immediately after this one. All right, so we got a track from Mr. Starbeast, which I saw, Mr. Starbeast, you released some tracks, and I haven't a chance to listen to them yet, but I'm planning on it at some point. But congrats on getting your music out there. Nice. Sounds really awesome. I'm really digging the vibe of it. It has this very kind of like Two Fingers-esque kind of like big, heavy, slow beat with like lots of cool, weird sounds going on, which I'm very into. I feel like there's kind of a couple major things you need to watch out for with this track. The first one is I like how your intro starts off. But I think the transition from the intro to the first kind of major beat part, I think you want your intro to be way quieter. I think you want that feeling of kind of like you're starting in one place and then all of a sudden you enter this big kind of like a wall of sound kind of area. I think you'll benefit from having a quieter intro, and that way it feels more different as you go from one to the other. Because it's a cool transition. But once we get to the transition, it doesn't feel like volume-wise. It doesn't feel as impactful as it could be, I think. So a little bit more volume change just in there. You also might want to get rid of some of those sounds. Like as you have that riser, you have a couple other sounds in the background. Maybe make those a little quieter as well, but keep the riser pretty loud. And then once we get into like the first kind of major beat section here, I think you're going to find that mixing this song is going to be very, very difficult because there's not only lots of layers, but there's lots of really important layers that you're going to be battling with, trying to make it all sound kind of clear. So one of the things you might want to do is either remove some layers or kind of like pick your battles and kind of do a bit of like negative arrangement where you're like cutting things out and removing things. And that's going to make your life for mixing a lot easier, while also still maintaining this big, huge kind of wall of sound kind of thing you got going on. Like, I love what you're doing with the vocals. They sound really cool, but there's also this kind of like choppy, kind of like plucky sound in the background. It's like the dun, 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 dun kind of sound. What's up, Jay? How you doing? That might need to either be way quieter or go, and that, because that's, to me, it's conflicting out with the vocals and it's making it harder to hear the vocals. I also just think in general, the vocals might just need to be a little bit louder. Yeah, and then here there's like another sound that comes in. It's just kind of like this noisy sound. It's just like there's a lot of cool sounds here all at the same time. And I think you'll find if you give each one its moment to shine, it'll make your life a lot easier for mixing and really kind of getting that really polished mix that you're going for. I like the little guitar parts there. That's really cool. And watch out especially for reverbs and delays on those background sounds, because those will also take up a bunch of space in your mix that you don't realize they're taking up a whole bunch of space in there. But other than that, I really like this section. I think it sounds really cool. It's just getting rid of some of those layers. Love that as a transition. Same thing here. There's a bunch of background layers that either could be way quieter or just not there. I think it's a little kind of weird and a little counterintuitive sometimes, where you think that more layers will get you a louder sound, but oftentimes if you have less layers, each layer can be louder and therefore it will sound louder. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, that's basically it. Like I said, conceptually, I really dig the song. I think it's just kind of cleaning up quite a bit, because right now it just like the mix just sounds so busy. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with having a very busy mix, but it does make it harder to hear all the different layers that you're trying to get through here. But yeah, that's basically it. That's kind of, I'm feeling the rest of it. The rest of it sounds really cool. It's fairly kind of straightforward. I kind of do wish the second half was a little bit more different than the first half. Like if there's one or two more things that change to make it a little bit more different. But yeah, overall, I'm into it. Sweet. And so with that, we have reached all of the songs in the spreadsheet. So if you would like to send a track, now would be a good time to do so. And you can do that by clicking on the link pinned up at the top of the chat. And then put your link in there and I'll check it out. Yeah, Jay, I wouldn't worry so much about phase cancellation issues in this situation. I mean, it's definitely something you want to consider, but it's usually not the main culprit for causing like loudness issues. You'll mostly only really need to worry about that for like super low end kind of content. It's generally where that tends to be more of an issue. And yeah, and while we are waiting for more people to send in tracks, if you guys have questions or things you want to talk about, whether they're Ableton related or music related or just life related, feel free to toss this in the chat and I will try to answer those to the best of my ability. And also keep in mind that all genres, all skill levels, all styles are more than welcome here. Yeah, Mr. Starbeast, if you got another track, let's hear it. Why not? I am very excited to hear all the things you guys been working on. And if you are enjoying the stream, if you're enjoying the feedback, feel free to hit the like button. You can also come by on Mondays when I do my office hours stream, where basically I hang out and you guys can ask me questions about Ableton Live and I will answer those. And then I also do a Tuesday Patreon stream if you're a Patreon member, where usually I just work on tracks and then also answer questions you guys may have. All right, let me pull up this next track. Give me one moment. Computer is feeling real slow today for some reason. All right, we got another track from Mr. Starbeast. Nice, I'm digging it. There's a lot of things about this track that I really do love. I do feel like the piano and especially the strings that come in later on sound really epic, and I'm really digging those quite a bit. It's cool to see you also like change up styles from your more kind of like down tempo-y bassy stuff to more kind of like drum and bassy kind of thing. But yeah, it's sounding pretty awesome. I feel like there's a couple minor things you might want to take a look at. The first of which is the drum pattern. I think overall the drums sound really good for drum and bass drums. I think they're like very much sound like drum and bass drums to me. However, I do feel like there were too many kick drums. I feel like it would be really cool, especially if early on in the song, if you took out some of those kicks, you'll get a little bit more space in your rhythm. And I think that, I don't know, to me, the rhythm had this very kind of like pounding feel to it. And I think if you started off with less of those kick drums, you'll have a bit more room in your mix and in your rhythm for people to dance to it in a slightly different way. And then as the song picks up and progresses, then you can go to the drum beat that you actually have. And if you listen to this drum beat, there's so many kick drums in there. So spread out those kick drums, especially early on in the song, and then as it builds in intensity, start peppering more of those kick drums back in. I think it'd be a kind of cool way to kind of build up the energy as the song progresses, and also give your audience a different rhythmic element to kind of like sink their teeth into, without totally rewriting the drums or anything like that. The other thing I thought was kind of interesting is that rhythmically, the kick and the bass until later on in the song are basically tied together. So every time there's a kick, there's a bass note, right? So I think that part of the reason I think taking out some of those kicks would mean that you have kind of two different like rhythmic elements to be looking into, where you have kick drums doing one pattern, bass is doing a slightly different pattern, and sometimes they sync up at the same time, but other times they're like, maybe there's a kick here and there's not a bass, or there's a bass here and there's not a kick, and that will give you some like room to play around with rhythm that way. Yeah, if it's just a drum loop, you can still just chop out some of those kick drums out of the drum loop, and I think that'll be a really nice way to spice up those drums. So yeah, so like I said, just by getting rid of some of those kicks, it creates a more of a give and take between your bass and your drums than what it is now. And then you can kind of play with it a little bit and maybe change the timing on the bass some other times to either purposely make it on time with the kick or purposely make it in between the kicks, which would be kind of cool. Other than that, I do feel like the bass sound to me sounds cool. I'm definitely digging it, but it sounds a little bit like it's always kind of the same. And I think for this kind of drum and bass, those kind of like morphing, shifting bass sounds work really well. So I think a little bit more automation / modulation in terms of your bass. One of the things I like to do for this kind of sound is like a notch filter. Just have a notch filter moving up and down, and it's a cool way to kind of like shift those harmonics a little bit. But right now, there's like a little bit of modulation in there, and there's like some really cool glides between notes. But I think more modulation, more effects, more kind of shifting, morphing stuff on those basses will be really, really cool. And then I like what you got going on with the pianos. They do seem a little bit overly reverbed. So if you dial that reverb back a little bit, I think that'll help the clarity of the pianos and maybe a little bit more volume to bring them out in the mix a bit more. And then during your break section right here, you definitely go a little bit too overboard on the reverbs. It's not a big deal. I love going overboard on reverbs, but I definitely think you can dial that back during this break section. All this stuff's super cool. Yeah, love the piano, and then like I said, I love the strings. The strings to me really make this track work. You might need to spend some time dialing in the volume of those strings in the mix to make sure that they're super audible, but the concept is there. They sound great, fantastic, love it. Yeah, that's basically it. That's kind of what I'm thinking here. Once again, overall, really love the concept. I think everything sounds really good. It's just a few minor tweaks here and there to kind of dial it in a bit, and you are good to go. Chat, if anybody has any other thoughts, opinions, questions, comments, ideas, you are more than welcome to share those in the chat. On top of that, if you would like to send me a track, if you want to get some feedback, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat, and that'll take you to the spreadsheet, and that's where you send me your song. And as of right now, we've gotten through all the songs on the spreadsheet so far. So if you want to send one in, now would be a good time to do so. Yeah, Jay, I can see that. A little more crispiness on the snare. I definitely wouldn't mind that. Drum and bass snares have got to be like super tight in terms of their production. If the snare on a drum and bass track doesn't sound right, then it can really kind of mess with the whole track. Also, if you guys have any ideas for video topics you'd like to see in the future, you guys know I release videos every Thursday on the channel about making music with Ableton Live. So if you have ideas for topics that you would like to see covered, definitely let me know in the chat, because I'm always on the hunt for video topic ideas. That's like the hardest part about making videos these days, is thinking of a topic. Or you can also feel free to toss any questions you have in the chat, and I will try to answer them now instead of making a video about it. So still waiting on anybody to pop in and send me a track. If you got one coming, let me know in the chat. Jay, I've done that a bunch in classes that I've taught in the past, where I'll have students bring me in songs and be like, hey, pick, how do I make this sound? And then we'll try to recreate it in class. It's definitely a super fun thing to do. And it's a really great way to get better at synthesis and sound design. Just being able to like hear something and then recreate it from scratch. I will definitely consider doing that for sure. The problem is a lot of the music I listen to, the stuff that I like paid a lot of attention to, is like fairly underground and not something that would probably be some people are like way into getting, watching. But I definitely love doing that. Maybe I'll make like a list or something, like a spreadsheet that I can send out, put on the Discord or something like that. And then, oh yeah, I love Arca. I'm a big Arca fan. Jacob, if you want to send in a track, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat. That'll take you to the spreadsheet, and that's where you send me the link for your track. Yeah, maybe I'll make like a spreadsheet or something where people can put in links to tracks and then put some notes in about like, how do I make the sound that starts at 28 seconds into the song, and maybe I'll go through those and I'll pick the ones I like the best, and I'll make some videos on how to make those. That could be really cool. So it looks like Jacob's going to be tossing in a song. And if anybody else wants to send in a song, now would be a good time to do so. Yeah, I haven't seen any Arca music videos in a while. I know that they just released one. Jacob, it should let you paste into the spreadsheet. You just click in the spreadsheet, and then it doesn't let you paste links into the chat. So you got to go to there's like a Google Doc that's linked up at the top of the chat, and that's how you send it in. That was my workaround for YouTube doesn't let you spam links in chat, which makes sense to me. Prevents spammers and things like that. But I forget which Kick album is the best, the one I've been liking the best. I think it's either 3 or 4. I think it's 3 is the one I've been into the most. But they're all really good. I'm not even sure if you need to be logged in to paste into the spreadsheet. Maybe you do. I'm never not logged into Google stuff, so I don't think I've ever tried to do it without being logged in. What else have you guys been listening to? I'm always curious to hear what music recommendations people have. I feel like there are times in my life where I'm like actively seeking out and hunting lots of music, and then other times where I'm just listening to the same stuff that I listen to all the time. And now has been one of those moments where I just been listening to the same things and not seeking out new music. Yeah, I've been an Arca fan for a while, but it seems like she's like blowing up in a really big way right now, which is awesome. It's always like super inspiring when people are making really weird, wild, out there music, and then like they hit their stride and it ends up blowing up, which is great. All right, sweet. So we got a track from Antandra. Cool, perfect. I'm assuming this is you, Jacob. Sweet. And then also, once again, if anybody's just joining us, click on the spreadsheet pinned up top of chat, and that's how you send me your song. Nice. A lot of really cool sound design here. Rhythmically, it sounds really good. I like a lot of the melodic elements, like this stuff right here. The almost kind of like trancey lead sounds actually work really well in contrast to some of the more kind of like dubsteppy, bassy other sound design you have going on. I thought it was really interesting when the song first starts. I almost thought it was like, oh, is this going to go in like a psytrance kind of direction? Like I could see this going very psytrancey, and then with like the kind of like psychedelic sound design, and then the like weird little percussion, and then you went for this more kind of like down tempo-y, bassy kind of thing, which I thought was kind of a cool combination. And you even included some kind of psytrancey sound design in the drop part itself, which I think is a cool, interesting direction to go in. I think that oftentimes you get kind of like bass sound design and you get like psytrance sound design, and they're kind of like they're related to each other, but they're different. And this is kind of a cool, interesting mix of the two in a way that I haven't really heard a lot of, at least, especially not recently. But yeah, so overall, really digging the sound design. I think that's one of the highlights of this whole track. However, I think probably the thing that this track needs the most is that a lot of your sound design sounds very sequential. And what I mean by that is that you kind of have like first sound, and then second sound, and then third sound, and then fourth sound, and fifth sound, which is generally how that kind of sound design is made. However, I think the trick to making this kind of music work is instead of making it sound like here's 4 individual sounds in a row, sound 1, 2, 3, 4, but instead, like you make them that way, but then you also make them flow from one to the next in a way that sounds like here's one sound that shifts and flows and transfers from one to the next to the other. And so there's a lot of different techniques for doing that I've used over the years. One thing I found is really fun is, after you convert everything to audio, you stretch it and you warp it so they kind of overlap each other a little bit more. So instead of it being like, here's one sound and here's the next sound, one kind of fades it out as the other one's kind of fading in. And that way you get this kind of like morphing effect between different kinds of sound design. You can also do a bunch of weird stuff with effects to make them kind of like wash into each other. There's a bunch of techniques to try it out. And there are certain times in this track where it did feel like that. It did feel like, okay, we're at one sound and it morphed and flowed nicely into the next one. And there are a lot of other times where it felt like, okay, here's one sound and then here's the next sound. So that I think is not only the most difficult part about making this kind of music, but also probably what you need to work on the most in order to make this track really kind of stick out. Other than that, I'm gonna kind of go through it a little bit and see if there's anything else. I really like your bass, your kick drum. It has this nice boom to it. Sounds really great. Sounds like nice and rich and full. However, your clap to me sounds a little bit dry. So it just sounds kind of like the generic 808 clap, which is most likely what it is. Layer it up with another clap slash add some more effects onto it. And then I think that will really help the kind of like rhythmic nature of the beat. Because I think the clap works, but like it could really work. And right now it kind of works. Another thing you could think about doing here that potentially you could look into, this may be a stylistic choice that you are purposely making or not. Right now, because you have in excess of sound design, a lot of people, when they make this kind of music, they end up using like the same 3-4 sounds in a row, and it gets really boring and repetitive. You kind of have the opposite problem where you're using like 16 different sounds in a row, and none of them are repeating. So you go with like sound 1 through 16, which is cool, but a lot of how people appreciate and understand music is based off of patterns, right? So instead of going sound 1 through 16, maybe set up like you go sound 1 through 8 and then 1 through 8 again, and then you go 9 through 16 and then 9 through 16 again. And that way it creates more kind of pattern recognition that can be predictable, which is also really helpful. People are dancing to it. If people are going to try to dance to this in a club or a festival or something like that, they want to have some sense of what's going to happen, but you also want to keep them on their toes. You have to kind of find a balance between being chaotic, which is kind of where you are now, to finding some sort of pattern or rhythm within the chaos in terms of how you're lining up your sound design. So organization of your sound design, I think, could be really, really cool. But I know people like to produce this way, and that's what they're into. And if that's a stylistic choice you're making, go for it. Other than that, I really like this section here. So it has this very kind of like spacey, trancey feel, which is nice. Yeah, same kind of feedback here. It's just like there's a lot of chaos with the sound design, and I think if you organize the chaos a little bit, you can still maintain that chaotic feel without, but also make it a little bit slightly more predictable. Because you just have so many sounds. You have tons of content to work with, which is great. Yeah, that's basically the main things I'm feeling on this track. Overall, really solid work. Like I said, a lot of people I think really struggle with coming up with the variety and just the amount of different sounds that you're using in just this one track. So I often find that when I get to this point where okay, I've got tons of content to work with, then a lot of it is like, all right, how can I recycle the content that I already have? How can I recycle some of these sounds in different ways into, again, kind of creating these patterns within the track. But yeah, chat, you got any thoughts, comments, questions, ideas? One of the things I like to recommend for people in chat, if this is your track, what's the next thing you do to it? I was thinking maybe also some vocal samples in there, but I'm not entirely sure if it needs it. Sweet. So once again, we have reached the end of the spreadsheet. So if you have a track you would like to send me, you got a track you're working on and you want some feedback on it from both myself as well as the other people here in chat, click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat. That takes you to the spreadsheet, and then that's where you send me your track. I will probably be hanging out for a little bit longer in case anybody else wants to share something, but I would just like to take time to thank all you guys for showing up, hanging out, sharing your music, as well as giving people your feedback. I say this usually at the beginning of stream, but I feel like I should say it now as well. This is one of my favorite streams to do, just because it's really cool to hear people's music, and I think it's fun to kind of hear what you guys are working on, and also to see you guys kind of progress and grow over time. Yeah, no worries, Jacob. That's really, like I said, that's really why I do it, is to offer some perspective and just hear what you guys are working on. Yeah, I can agree with Jay on this one. A little bit of like textured, crunchy sounds in there, a little ear candy. I wouldn't mind that as well. Yeah, Jacob, I've been finding that for most people, when you're making tracks like this, just make a bunch of them. Just make like 30 tracks, and then pick your like favorite 5, and then go from there. So that's usually the way I like to work. Is just write a bunch of stuff, right till I have too many songs, and then I pick the best ones, and then those ones that I end up releasing. Yeah, Mr. Starbreeze, I would love to hear your question about delay feedback. Going back to what Lewis was saying about, what he's going to release or not. That's partially why I'm doing the song a week thing right now, is that I'll have 50 songs by the end of the year, and then I can have a bunch of releases ready to go for a while. All right, so Mr. Starbeast is asking, when I put a return track and put the dry wet to 100% and automate the send, the track can't be muted even when the track is off. So let's take a look at this situation here. So I think I know what you're saying, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So if we have a track here, and is it still going to? That is very loud, but yes. So you have this, go into your delay here, and if you turn this off, you're still getting it? Is that what's going on? Because this is, I believe, how it should work. Let me read this question one more time. So turn the dried up to 10% and automate the send. Yeah, so I have a delay here on this return track. It's at 100% dry wet. So if I do something like this and turn this up, this will send it to the delay. And then I turn this off. It should, when I mute this track, it should stop sending it here. I sent a guitar track through the delay and couldn't get the track quiet during points when it was automated to 100%. Yeah, still, I'm unable to recreate that situation. Because the only thing that you can really do to kind of like change the routing of the sends is you can switch your sends over here to be pre or post. So post mixer means that this volume will control the volume going here. If you either by accident or purpose set this to be pre mixer, that means this volume doesn't matter, which means if this is playing, this is most likely what happened. So if this is set to pre, this is going to your return track before the mixer. If this is set to post, it's going to be after the mixer. So if this is turned down, we're not going to get anything. But if I switch this will still send. So that might have been the situation you're in. That might have been what was happening. I'm trying to think of any other way that the delay return would still be getting a signal. I guess the other thing would be if you turn your feedback up, even if you turn your feedback to like 95%, or if you hit the infinite feedback, this will also. I have to turn it on first. If I do this, it'll send it not forever, it'll send it for a very long time because your feedback's at 95%. That would be the other way, or you hit the infinite feedback, which will also go on forever, but I can't imagine. Yeah, that's what it is. If your feedback's at 100%, so let's talk about delays and feedback, because this is actually interesting. So let me just put a delay on the actual track itself. We'll do something like this. We will we'll do this, and we will do this. All right, so when it comes to delay, there's the two most important controls on every single delay, right? There's feedback and there's dry wet. I'm just gonna go through both just to make sure it's super clear for both of them. So you'd mute the return track, but it wouldn't mute. Yeah, that wouldn't. If your feedback's turned up all the way and you muted the return track, it would still mute it. So if we played this, but if you muted that, that would turn it off. So potentially there's some other routing going on in your track where your guitar is going somewhere else, potentially. Keep that up here. But yeah, so if we're just taking a look at like a kick drum going into delay, the dry wet is going to be the volume of the original signal versus the volume of the delayed signal, right? So 50-50, if I hit this once, we hear the original one and then we hear the delayed one. They're both the same volume. If I turn this to 25%, the original hit will be louder than the delayed hit. If I turn this up to 75%, the delayed hit will be louder than the original. So just controlling the volume of the original signal versus the volume of the delays. That's all it does. The feedback is going to be how many times it echoes after the fact. So at 0% feedback, we get the original kick and we get one delay. But as I turn this up, the volume from the delay gets sent back into itself. And so the higher this goes, the more of those echoes we get. If you turn this up to 95%, it will delay for a very, very long time. And that's how you get those kind of infinite delays or 75 or semi-infinite delays. If this happens to you and you get stuck like that, you just turn this down and that'll get rid of it again. Most delays in live max out at 95%. But if you use something like Echo max out at 150%, which means it'll continue to get louder. So if you go to like just over 100%, this will go basically forever. But if you turn this up, it'll actually get louder and louder. And there's no limit to how loud it will get. So you have to watch out for that because it'll just keep getting louder. So if you want to get quieter, you just turn it back down. So if you have a signal going into your return track that has a delay on it, even if it has a really high feedback, and I just send it a signal for a second, so this is going to get this for a very long time. We'll continue this for a long time. But because this is on this track, if we're talking about kind of like signal flow and order of operations, the delay happens first, and then the mixer of your track here, which means if you muted this and you were still getting a signal somewhere, that means that there's some other routing going on here. Another situation that could potentially cause this is that if your return track was not going directly, actually, even if it was going directly to the master, this would still affect it. If you had an audio track, if we had like this track that was receiving audio from the delay with a monitor in, that would also do it. So let's turn this up to be infinite. So now if I mute this, that's still not going there because it's post mixer. If I do that, we'd still get the signal there. I don't know. To me, it sounds like you have some kind of fancy, complicated routing going on, that your signal is being sent somewhere where it shouldn't be, and you have a super huge feedback, and then you're just constantly hearing that, even though this is muted. So there are definitely ways that you can either on purpose or by accident set that up in a way that creates those kind of infinite delays. But yeah, I would just scour your whole thing and see if there's any tracks that are receiving input that either shouldn't be or something. I don't know, something weird's going on. So it looks like we got another track. We got one from Alex coming in. And then once again, if anybody is just joining us and would like to send in a track, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat. That'll take you to the spreadsheet, and that's how you send me your song. Nice. I'm really digging this. It kind of reminds me of some like old Subtract or like No Such Thing or something like that. I think it'd be great as like a cool background track for something for sure. I think if it were up to me, I think the first big thing this needs is a bass line. And I'm kind of feeling like not like a electronic music bass line, but more of like a, I don't know, like a somebody actually playing like a bass guitar, playing like a funk bass line could be really cool. Or just some kind of like plucky bass line I think would work really well. Doesn't necessarily need to be somebody playing guitar, but like a plucky bass thing, just kind of like somebody noodling on a bass guitar could be really cool. I could definitely hear some Boards of Canada on this for sure. To me, to me, the drums are a little too hip hop for Boards of Canada. So if you're going for more Boards of Canada, I would maybe have more kind of acoustic drums in here. But then other than that, I feel like taking that kind of like melodic, the higher pitched melodic synthy sound and just having like a bunch of different layers. So it kind of like expands from being just what you have now to having like more and more layers of different melodic elements. Yeah, Navid, you are more than welcome to send in any style you want, whatever it is you're into. That's what I want to hear. Well, yeah, off the top of my head, those are kind of the two things I'm hearing on this already. And then just like go crazy with reverbs and just kind of reverb this thing out to make this nice kind of like spacey, atmospheric kind of sound. Could go really well. I've got mixed opinions about the person talking in the background. Right now, to me, it sounds like it's a little bit too quiet. So I either feel like it should be more loud and more noticeable, or even less noticeable, like one of the two. I also feel like with those kind of longer chords you have going on, more layering on those chords would be great, just to thicken them up. Maybe start with just this one layer, and then as the song progresses, you add in more layers, but that same kind of note progression. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling. I mean, it's a really cool kind of like sketch for a jumping off point for the rest of this track. Yeah, I think once you add a few more layers in there, then you can kind of like start to take what you have and then kind of build it out into more of an arrangement where you have kind of, either beginning, middle, end slash, intro, verse, chorus, something like that. Yeah, so a lot of times what I like to do with my layers is I'll just take whatever layer I already have and I'll duplicate the entire track. And on the next layer, on the duplicated version, I'll tweak the settings a bit. Not like massively, like maybe I'll add an effect or two, maybe I'll tweak some filter settings, maybe I'll tweak some oscillator settings a little bit. So that way it's kind of similar. They both have the same starting point, but it also sounds a little bit different. And then maybe I'll pitch it up an octave or down an octave, something to also make it sound a little different. And that way they complement each other, but also bring a little bit something new to the table. And I might do this 2 to 3 different times. And that way all of a sudden I go from having one layer of one sound to having 3, maybe 4 different layers, and be able to jump back to different combinations of different layers that are, again, all kind of like, they have the same starting point, but they all kind of are tweaked to be a little bit different. Playing with rhythms is another thing I do a lot for different kinds of layers. So one might be quarter notes, and one might be eighth notes, or one might be whole notes. It's another fun way to kind of like break up your layers a little bit. Because I like that kind of chord you have going on. It's just like really kind of consistent. But I definitely feel like that could be expanded a bit. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the concept that a lazy producer is often a really good producer. So instead of coming up with an entirely brand new layer for all the different things you're working on, just duplicate what you already have, tweak it a little bit, spice it up a little bit, and then all of a sudden you got a new layer. And it takes way less time than coming up with new layers from scratch. Sweet, chat. You got any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Feel free to let us know. And if you're enjoying the stream, feel free to hit that like button or whatever, one of those buttons. And if you would like to send in a track, I feel like I've been saying this a bunch today, but I'm trying to get in the habit of just reminding people who might be new. Click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat. That'll take you to the spreadsheet. And that's how you send me your song. So I'm probably gonna stick around for a little while longer. Navid, I'm not sure if you are hanging out to send in a track today. But if you send in a track right now, you'll be the next one in line. Also, I think Alex, I don't remember if I've said this before or not. The branding on your image here is fantastic. I love this, like the blue box, the yellow letters in front of your face. I don't know. For some reason that works for me. I think it works really well. You guys are also more than welcome to ask any questions you may have about just music production in general, or anything you want to talk about. No, I am 100% not the person to ask about branding. I actually have taught some branding stuff before for like more advanced music classes. We're talking about like, releasing stuff and, kind of getting ready to kind of like get out and like shop stuff out to labels and things like that. And I understand that branding is very important and I understand how to recognize good branding, but I am not the person to ask about how to build a brand. I understand the aesthetics of branding, but not the functional application of branding, I think is where I struggle with it. I'm way too much of an introvert to be really good at marketing and understand all that stuff in the way some people do. Some people like really get that, and I'm very jealous because that's a skill set that I wish I could build better. But I do know how to recognize a good brand when I see one. So Jay's asking how to use granular synthesis or effects. So luckily for you, Jay, I released a video on the granulator not too long ago on the channel. So I'd recommend checking that out. I actually have a video on both granulator, and then a while back I did a video on the grain delay, which is a granular effect. But I can go over the basics real quick if you are interested. Let me grab, do I have the granulator? My favorites? Nope, for some reason I don't. So let me also add that to my favorite. The way granular processing works is that generally when you play a sample, you play from beginning to end, right? You start at the beginning, you go to the end. And I apologize for anybody who might not be interested in this, but this might take me a minute to explain because it's a little weird. So in granular synthesis, you're basically sampling, right? You're just taking a sample. Let me see if I can find like a sample. That one's already kind of weird. Sure, we'll try this. Actually, no, let's find a longer one.
Yeah.
This work. Cool. So in granular synthesis, we're going to go from, instead of going beginning to end, we're going to jump around randomly, which ends up creating these really kind of weird, psychedelic, crazy sounds. So if we're using something like Granulator, which is a fantastic granular synthesizer, you can see our waveforms in here. And then as I play this note, as I play the C3 note, instead of jumping, like starting here and then going here and then looping into the beginning and going to the end again, it jumps around. And you can see the little yellow lines indicating what part of the sample we're hearing. And we can change our position using the position control here. So just by moving them around, we can do kind of like reverse sounds, or not, it's not quite a reverse sound, but you get the idea. Just like that. And then we can also adjust the grain size of it. So the grain size is going to be basically how large of an area are we going to be working with. So if I turn this down, we're going to get a smaller grain size. All the way down to like really microscopic. And once again, if we have a small grain size and then move our file position through it. Once again, we get crazy, weird, trippy sounds with it. If we have a really high grain size, we basically can use this just like a synthesizer, which is cool for being able to like, actually sounds great. That sounds fantastic. It sounds like a harpsichord. Super cool. So we can use it basically like a sampler in this situation where we're just kind of like picking little bits of it. And of course we can move this around. We can adjust our grain size. Which sounds awesome. So those are like two of our main controls that you're going to see on pretty much like any granular synthesizer out there. And then we also have the spray, which is really where the randomness starts to come in. So as I turn this up, it's going to randomize it more. If I turn it up really high, we'll see our little yellow dots jumping all over the place. So let's make this a little bigger. Let's turn this up. So you can hear it's jumping all over the place now. So we can adjust all these together to make all kinds of weird stuff with it. And that's generally really what Granular is really good at. It's just making really weird, crazy sounds. So those are your three main controls that you're just going to see pretty much any granular synthesizer out there. We also have an LFO that we can apply to either the file position and or the grain. So if we take our spray, turn this down, if we apply this to the file position, it's going to move our position up and down. Let's move it up, and then it'll move back down. It's a 10-second cycle, so let's speed this up a bit. So super fun. Just get lots of loud sounds out of that way. So that's on the file position. We can also do this on the grain size. And then of course we combine this with the spray. Pretty well. And then we can scan it. This will basically, instead of just moving it within the space, it'll continue to move it forwards.
Yeah.
And then we can like adjust a bunch of stuff for this. I'm not gonna get too in depth into it because I talk about this in the video, but it's worth checking out. Like all these features together allow you to do all kinds of crazy weird sound design. Generally not really great for maintaining like the sonic integrity of a sound. It's mostly good for just taking a sound and just making it sound like something absolutely nuts. And then if we click on this button right here, it switches from our like kind of granular sampler kind of area to our more kind of like traditional synthesizer options. So we have like volume envelopes, ADSR, we have pitch controls, we have FM synthesis, we have filter A, filter B, just regular filters. We have envelopes for our filter or our FM synthesis. It's all in there. But yeah, if you like making weird, trippy, kind of crazy sound design, granular synthesis is fantastic. So yeah, let me know if you have more questions about it, but that's kind of like the basics of it. Once you kind of understand, like it's really hard to wrap your head around the file position, grain, and the spray. But once you do kind of wrap your head around specifically those three controls, the rest of it just kind of falls into place. And it will allow you to be able to create things with a bit more precision than as opposed to just randomly turning stuff. Yeah, no worries, Mr. Starbies. Your tracks are sounding super good. I can't wait to hear the newer stuff you've been working on. And then kind of on the flip side of that, since you asked about granular effects, grain delay, super cool. It's basically the exact same as a regular delay, except for it also has spray and frequency, just like we did over inside of Granulator, where we have our spray and then our grain size. So same basic concept here. So what this means is if I have spray at 0, frequency doesn't matter, and pitch at 0, there's no granular stuff going on. It's just a regular delay. Just a regular delay, right? But if I start turning this up, instead of playing the delay from the beginning to the end, it's going to be randomly jumping around to different parts of the delay. Thanks, Alex. I'll see you around. Which mostly gets you these like really kind of chaotic sounding delays, which can be really cool. This tends to work especially well with this pitch control. So this allows you to pitch up or down your delays. So if you combine these together, You get some really wild delays out of this. It gets real weird real fast. A lot of times if you have your spray and your frequency set too high, it just gets really noisy. And it's like not very pleasant. But if you tweak your settings to be just right, you can get some really cool stuff out of it. Yeah, if you like Arca, any kind of granular processing is going to be super fun to play around with. You can do some really fun stuff with it. So yeah, so that's kind of grain delaying and granulator in a nutshell. But check out the videos I made about both of them because they're both worth looking into, and you can do some really fun stuff with it. Sweet. So I think that's gonna be it for today's stream. Appreciate all you guys coming by and not only sending me your tracks to take a listen to, which I very much enjoyed, but also asking those questions about delay routing and granular stuff. You guys are more than welcome anytime to pop in here and ask questions about whatever you got on your mind. So there's lots of different ways to do risers. There's noise sweeps. There are drum builds where the drums just get faster and faster. An easy way to do that is just to like start at a certain amount of, oops, let's keep that there. So say you want to like start with quarter notes. I'll do it with the kick drum, but you can do the exact same thing with the snare. Start with the kick drum, and then it's going to get faster. And then I usually just, you just double the speed every once in a while. And then that's kind of how you can do a build like that. So it just starts at one speed for a while, and then it speeds up. It's faster, and then you got yourself a little build. And you can do this with any drum sound. You can do it with the kick, you can do it with the snare, whatever you want. That's a great way to do it. You can do, like I said, noise sweeps. You can do filter sweeps, can be fantastic. You just take a sound that sounds really cool, put it like an auto filter on it. We can actually combine those two techniques together with a auto filter, and we will automate that to go up. So it'll start muted, filter moves up with it. So to make those notes faster the way I did is I literally just plugged them in at whatever rate I wanted. So in this case, I want quarter notes. And the way I duplicate them and make them change is I select the empty space with the note. So you can see how up here, it selects this whole space. And then I just hit Command D. So it duplicates the note and the empty space. And then I select a smaller amount of space with the note. And then I get a smaller amount of space with the note. And then here, I just select the note because I'm going down to 16th notes. And then if I want to make it faster, I use Command 1 and 2 to change my grid size. So if I go down to Command 1, it changes the grid size to be smaller. Add another note at 32nd notes. And if I wanted to keep going, I could go down to 64th notes. And I missed one. So I'm just adding in notes at different sizes and then just using Command D to duplicate it. So that works. Yeah, change the grid size, and that'll change the size of the note that gets put in there. So if you have a really large grid size, you get big notes. If you have a smaller grid size, you get smaller notes. But yeah, there's tons of ways to do builds and things like that. It really kind of depends on what style you're doing and what you want to do for your builds. Sweet. So yeah, now that we got that question of the way, I think that is going to be it for today. Once again, thank you guys for all popping in, saying hi. Appreciate all you guys. Have a really good weekend. Work on some music, and I will hopefully see you guys back here on Monday for another office hour stream. Have a good one.